Okay, let's get this video recorded. What's that smell? Is that the garbage? No, it's not the garbage. No, it doesn't seem to be in here anywhere. I don't know where it is. Oh, that's what it is. That's what I'm smelling. That's what's stale. So I used to be that guy, and I think you guys all know who that guy is. He's the one that hated everything that was popular in the anime world. There's many of you that are still like this to this day, and you'll learn one day, but I have found over time that giving things a chance can sometimes surprise you. One of the shows that I really did decide to give a chance to was Demon Slayer. Despite its popularity, despite the craze, despite everybody always talking about it online and my desire to want to just hate it for that, I decided to give it a watch. And honestly, I loved the first season. It was probably one of my most hype shows that I watched for a while, along with My Hero Academia when I gave that a chance too. That was pretty good up at the start. A lot of times, my feelings change for shows as they go on. And Demon Slayer, unfortunately, was one of those shows. So, I really liked Season 1. It was absolutely peak for me. Season 2 was really great, despite it mostly just being a fight scene, but the fight scene was absolutely incredible. And then we got Season 3, Swordsmith Village arc. So, I was really excited for it. And in a lot of ways, I really thoroughly enjoyed it a ton, but there also was couple things that I didn't really like. So for this, I'm going to kind of go back and forth between things that I liked and things that I didn't like, because I don't want this to seem like I'm just dragging into gushing, but I also don't want it to seem like I'm just dragging this thing through the mud. I think a lot of people feel like this. There's been a lot of comments online and stuff that I've seen, and I was kind of hesitant to put out this video at first. First thing that I really liked about the show was I thought it was really cool to see the village where they made the swords, and to learn a little bit more about the swordsmiths. They had some really great characters that they showed, and we got to learn more about characters that we had seen before within that village. I really thought it was cool, and I'm going to try to not be super spoiler heavy, but some stuff will be spoilery. So one of the swordsmiths, got hyper focused on honing that edge, and I really loved that whole scene and everything that went along with it, including the big bad mutilating him basically, and him just being so focused he just couldn't stop. It was a good time. It was a good time overall, and I really enjoyed that. So on the negatives though, the big bads were just not it. They just weren't it this time. Last season, we had some savage enemies that just came up, and they went through some really brutal fights with them. I think we can all kind of agree that that was a pretty epic fight scene. Like, whether or not you liked how long it was, how much it got stretched out, that's a totally different thing. But the core of it was sick, and they really had to rise to the challenge. The Hashira, Tanjiro, and crew, they all just really had to muster together and get into this fight that almost took them all to their deaths, but they overcame it in the end, and the whole thing felt really super epic. Along with that, we also got to see some incredible backstory into the enemies, and I really enjoyed the entire story with those two. I mean, I probably won't forget the whole burning body thing for quite a while. It was savage, and it was well done, I thought. This time around, we didn't get that at all. We, in fact, got nothing from one of the big bads whatsoever. Pot Boy, we got nothing. We got to learn, that he's really into art and that he feels like he's just a super badass for the things that he does. But honestly, he didn't really do anything that wowed or amazed too much, and they didn't even attempt to do any backstory with him whatsoever, which was a massive disappointment because it just didn't feel like the character was as imposing as he should have been. He just seemed kind of like a silly jokester, and honestly, he just kind of slapped fools around a little bit, didn't even do anything that miraculous. On the other hand, the other character, he annoyed the shit out of me. I'm not even gonna lie. I'm just gonna throw that straight out there, the real truth. He annoyed me. He pissed me off really bad. It was like we had one guy and he was lame, and then he got cut up and split into multiple forms, and it just kept multiplying, and we kept learning about more of these forms. None of them brought anything to the table that was really worthwhile at all. We had a big old crybaby. We had a couple guys that were supposed to be super badass, but they could do one single thing. I think the leaf attack was pretty savage in itself, but it just didn't really carry any sort of weight with it. And really, when it came down to boiling down to this fight, it was just trying to find this little shrimp boy as he just flittered through the forest, and everyone went, whoa, and tried to cut him down, and he was invincible. The other thing that I thought was really pathetic about it was that the whiny guy, he just kept always talking about, like, his splits, his divisions, kept talking about how it was so ridiculous that you would try to attack this little small, weakless, weak, defenseless thing, despite the fact that the whole point of the demons is that we're stronger than humans, we're the superior force, and we're gonna wipe them out. Like, they're literally in competition with what they're saying that they believe, and shame on you for attacking the weak, but that's our whole goal, is to attack the weak and dominate over them. It made no damn sense to me. I thought it was just really pathetic and weak writing. To be honest, I didn't really think that it was that strong, and it didn't really help out with that whole crew. Along with that, the backstory explanation was bad. It was thin, it was weak, it didn't really add anything to it at all. We had this really great story from before, like I mentioned, with the gross kid and his just fighting against society and trying to survive against all odds and just having nothing but horror rain down on him. And then we just ended up with just this lame guy who was a piece of crap and was gonna go be executed, and Muzan was just like, yo, I'm gonna make you a demon now. Because that makes sense. I don't know. I don't know what they were thinking with this. I wasn't a big fan of it, even in the slightest. So back into things that I really like. We got to see the Mist Hashira and the Love Hashira, and both of them were absolutely fantastic. We didn't get into the Love Hashira exactly the same as we got into the Mist Hashira, but we did get into her story, and it was a beautiful story. I actually thoroughly enjoyed it. It was pretty much what I expected, but I found it to have a good flow, and we learned more about her, and I think that she's a really outstanding character. It was nice to see someone with kind of a positivity behind them, despite, odds being against them in life and what they wanted. And she's chasing a dream, and I think that's really cool. Plus, her frickin' sword, like noodle blade action, savage, absolutely savage. I never would have thought I would have liked a sword like that, but it was awesome. It was really awesome, and it was used really well. On the other hand, we had the Mist Hashira, who started off as a character that we definitely thought was a piece of crap. He acted like a piece of crap, and he did piece of crap things. Got to see that a lot. However, he flipped the script on that. Once he got his memories back, we got to learn a little bit more about him, and he started to kind of grow as a character, which is what we want to see with shows, right? Is good character growth. More on that later. And as he grew, and he became a good, cool dude. Now, his situation he was put in with the pot master was kind of lame. I'm going to trap you in this, pod of bubbled juice grossness, but he got out of it, and he saved the kid, and things got kind of good from there. But I think they just didn't really utilize him as much. What we did see from him, sick. I love his skills. I love his style. He was absolutely awesome, and he can be savage and quite the beast. He definitely lives up to the Hashira name that he got. Another positive thing was the ancient sword that they brought out. We kind of got introduced to this ancient sword, and I thought they did it in a really masterful way. Very beginning of the series, he was fighting this dummy doll, and they gave a lot of background about where it came from and why it was so special. And I won't reveal it all, but they do discover this sword, and it became kind of a part of the show that you kind of watched through. I wanted to see more about the sword, but we did get to see it honed, and we did get to see it used. I think that there's definitely going to be a lot more of that, or at least I hope there is. Please tell me more about this sword, and let's see what happens, because it doesn't actually sound like they finished the sword in its entirety. It was given to Tanjiro pretty early on, and we got to see him use it like a butter knife. in a Demon Slayer way. Going back in the negatives, I know a lot of people have complained about CGI in anime all the time. I'm always a person to defend it in so many cases, but I can definitely recognize where it's a little weak. So we had these multiple dragon head things that shot up from the ground and just did a lot of savage awesomeness. They're good. It was pretty good. I don't think it was the weakest point of CGI usage in a show that we've seen. However, they could have blended it just a little bit better. Even worse than that, though, a more egregious use of CGI was the fish dudes. Granted, they were a very small part, which was good, but I don't know, something about it. And I've seen people talk about this online too that definitely agree with me, but I just feel like the CGI fish they didn't blend well enough into the show. But again, I'm not taking huge points off this series because of the fish. They were very short-lived. Wasn't really a big deal. So jumping into the positive things, and this is kind of a late game spoiler, so skip past this section and I'll try to make a chapter marker so that you can do that easily if you don't want to hear a big spoiler. But Nezuko is good in the sun now, apparently, to some degree. I would be lying if I said that I didn't know that was going to happen, because I do follow the mangas to a certain degree. I try not to spoil myself too much, but when you're kind of digging into things, sometimes you find these things out, and I knew it was coming at some point. I didn't know how they were going to introduce it, and I thought they did a really, really good job. Unfortunately for me, knowing that ahead of time really sucked, and I even told Bree, and so I kind of ruined that special moment for both of us. There was a pretty big scene that we saw at the end where we thought that Nezuko was gone, and then they reveal, nope, she's not only not gone, she's actually evolved, and we're just moving this series into something much bigger, much more grand, which was beautiful. It was beautifully well done. I can still appreciate it despite knowing what it was, but it didn't have that same emotional impact for me, and I wish it did. I think that could have been pretty good, but anyway, that was definitely a highlight of this show, and it was definitely a good thing to put towards at the back end to kind of keep us thirsty for more episodes coming out. So on the negative side, this is kind of my more controversial take, but I'm getting real tired of Tanjiro. I'm getting really, really tired of him. I feel like he's gone through so much at this point. He's had so much growth. He's built himself up. He has fought the craziest challenges that we've seen. He's really pushed himself to these upper echelon levels. And yet when he's fighting against the big bad, in this season, it seemed like he was struggling. It seemed like he was struggling a lot. And I talked with Bree about it, and she's like, oh, he hasn't fully recovered from his injuries from before and stuff like that. But, I mean, that's just not fun. It's just not fun for me. It gets a little tiring. Something that irritated me a lot later in the show was that Tanjiro he doesn't seem to have learned like he should have in some ways. There was a point where he cut this demon's head off, and I just really feel like at this point we should know that things are not over until they're over. But whatever reason, and I mean, we know the reason, it was because he was worried about Nezuko, but he just didn't complete the job. He cut the head off, and he was like, all right, now I'm going to go scramble off and do this other thing. And you know, it's cute because it's like altruistic. It's good that he's, really concerned about his sister and he needs to run. But goddamn, Tanjiro, like, why don't you know better by now? Like, it should be at this point where when they kill something, they should just savagely mess it up. And one of the reprieves that I actually felt like is when we saw the Mist Hashira, and when he defeated the pot boy. He didn't mess around with the guy. He just was like, I'm tired of you listening to you. And just hacked them all up into pieces. And it felt great. It felt great, and it felt really good to see. Why the heck is Tanjiro not doing that yet? I'm tired of his softness. Like, I get that it's a strength for him, and that, he's got this good MC thing going on, but damn, I just want to see him just get to the point now where he's like, I'm taking this seriously. When this beast is done, it's not done until it is done. And just hack him up. But instead, he chopped the head off, and that led to more problems later on, which just frustrates the hell out of me. It just really irritates me. I want to see him grow more. And I know that's what the show is about. We'll see that more. But I feel like at this point, he should grow more. He should be grown more. On the positive sides, the animation is still A+++++. I don't know how they're keeping this up. We've seen the joke. I think some of you have seen the joke online. There's a video where this guy's delivering like the powdered baby blood mixed with cocaine, and it turns out it's the Ufotable guys working on Demon Slayer, and I seriously feel like that's what they do sometimes. I really do. I don't know how they're belting these out, because this animation just continues to wow and amaze and just really impress people. And for the most part, outside of some of the complaints that I've mentioned before, I think their use of CGI has just been fantastic. They've done a lot to make these fight scenes really cohesive, but also just vividly interesting to watch. It's really great, and I really am thoroughly enjoying it. So finally, the last thing that I have to say for the negative part is we didn't really have any Inosuke or Zenitsu in this one, which I think some people enjoyed. I don't know. I like the crew. I like having the crew together, and I feel like when they're not together, or at least not taking a part in the show, there's something a little bit lacking in what we get. And, a lot of people are probably going to disagree with me on that, but this is just about my feelings and thoughts and not about, hard fact and opinion. I missed them. I wish I would see them more. I definitely want to see Zenitsu grow more. I got to see that lightning stuff. And the little callback that they did with Tanjiro and the lightning, it just made me want Zenitsu. It made me want him. It's almost like he's gaining these powers and it's making them become irrelevant, which I don't want to see. I want to see the boys back in town. So I guess leaving off with just a couple little tidbits. I like Genya. We got to see Genya in this one. His powers were interesting to me, but I also wasn't entirely sure what to think about it. The whole eating demons and kind of becoming part demon was kind of weird, and they kind of didn't get into it too deeply, so maybe that's why it just didn't set like 100% beautifully with me. But that was an interesting thing, and it was interesting to see him. And I mean, he kind of grew a little tiny bit. He's still a big butthead that nobody likes, but when a battle comes, he bucks down for the battle, so that was cool. And it ended good. The show ended good. Okay, so it's like I have these complaints and I have these thoughts and these feelings, but overall, when it was over, I was like, all right, that was a season. I enjoyed it, but it just felt like it was a little lacking. It felt like it was a little weak. It felt like we had been slipping a little bit. That said, I have an idea of what's coming up next, and I am freaking stoked. Get that Hashira training on. I'm really, really excited for it. And I think that the next set of episodes is definitely tuned out to be something really, really interesting and continue with the narrative and the stuff that I want to see most in the show. And that's it. That's my thoughts. That's Demon Slayer Season 3, the thoughts of Dre from Yokuso Otaku, for whatever the crap that matters. If you like this content, hit the thumbs up. If you don't, hit the thumbs down. And subscribe to Yokuso Otaku for more anime news, reviews, and gaming. Catch you on the next one. Peace.